All right, so let's see who logs on here. So I'm just going to, basically what I'm going to be doing is a graduated bob. It's going to be triangular. So my goal with this haircut, and Carly, I'm basically going to be talking to you. So my goal with this haircut is to make sure that I follow the angle, follow the chin line. So I want to bring the whole thing up to here and have a little bit of a forward fall to the front of the haircut. So I don't want to have it super extreme. I think when people think triangular, they overdirect everything really far back and then it becomes too extreme in the front. I want it to be nice and soft, so that's what our goal is going to be today. I'm also going to cut it with a center parting. That way, when I do it with a center parting, I can work on staying balanced on both sides. So for me, today I decided I wanted to cut this haircut because I, like everyone else, should practice keeping balanced, keeping consistent. So I've been cutting a lot of textured haircuts, a lot of things lately. So I'm in need in my mind of just working and getting more consistent again and just working on those things. Just like a sports player or anybody else, like you have to practice the things to make sure you stay consistent. So center parting. So I'll just look right over the nose, comb it back, make my first part. I don't have to go all the way down center back at first. I'll continue that after I get this hair out of the way. It's down. And what I'll do is I'll check that in the mirror, or in this case in the video, and make sure that I have that center parting right where I want it before I continue into the back. Because obviously if I turn my guest and I part down the center back, what's going to happen is I'm going to have to do it all over again if it's not right. So then I'll turn this around here. I'll tilt her head a little bit forward. Let me see. And those of you guys that are tuning in live, I really appreciate it. I'm not watching the chat for this. This is more, I just wanted to pop on here live. I will take a look at the chat at the very end, see if I can find any of your questions. But this is more just for you guys to be able to watch. I can't really watch the chat at the same time. So this video will also be, I'm filming it for YouTube to edit it and put it together. So, all right. So if you like the fast-paced videos, how that comes out. This one's going to be a slow roll, just working on consistency. So we'll saturate the hair. I want to make sure that I keep the hair nice and saturated the entire time because you want to keep not only your elevation, your tension, your finger angle, all of that stuff consistent, but also the fabric of the hair should be consistent as well. So I want to make sure that I have everything the same saturation pretty much all the way through the haircut. All right, so we're going to section the hair away. Now what I'm going to do, just so that I can kind of cut this in half, I'm going to work across the occipital bone, from the occipital bone to behind the ear. Pretty standard sectioning I've done on a lot of the haircuts you guys watch. So we'll do that. And up. And let's zoom in a little bit. Cool. All right, so we'll comb this over and I'll slip up and underneath. So I'll show you guys that. So you just slide the clip underneath, pulls the hair up and away from the rest of the hair. If you just kind of pinch a clip in there, it can move this part of the hair, won't stay tight, and it'll get in the way of the rest of your work. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So I'll comb the hair in the direction I want it to go, and then I'm going to take a parting across the occipital bone over to behind the ear. Just like that. And I'm going to comb this over and away. And then slide your clip up underneath to hold the hair nice and tight. So now we've got that occipital bone area down to the bottom. The reason I like to do this is because of the head shape. I talk about head shape a lot. If I put the comb flat just like this, you can see the angle that is created from the difference between this angle and up here. this angle, and then obviously here, this angle. This is a round surface. So if I'm holding the hair here and I continue up the head shape, that elevation gets lower and lower as you go, even though your angle stays the same. So it's not so much about finger angle. We're taught in school that this is 45. This isn't 45. 45 at this point of the head is more like this, right? But 45 at this point of the head is like this. So you have to be really well aware of what the head shape is doing, because your angle is going to reflect, and the weight and the density and everything in the haircut is going to reflect the finger angle that you have. So we're going to start off. I'm going to spin this around this way. Come over here. All right. Adjust this stand. There we go. All right, so I'm going to tilt the head forward slightly, just like that. I'm going to comb the hair. Now, I'm going to part this side out of the way. So for the video, I'm going to comb this hair over, and I'm actually going to clip it. Just grab a clip real quick. I'm actually going to clip it out of the way. In real life in the salon, I probably wouldn't clip this part. And only because it's a little bit easier, especially with human hair, to kind of get it to push over, or I would use a little bit of product to push it over. I wouldn't need to clip it all, but you can if you want to stay nice and clean that way. So the way I'm going to work this triangular graduation is I want to make sure I'm working on a diagonal, the same angle that I want to create here, right? So that diagonal should follow through to the jawline. So you take your first parting, and I'm going to hold it straight back in my hands. Let's see where we're at with that angle. Shift the head a bit. Just like that. So I take that first parting, just like that. And this is basically going to be 90 degrees straight out from the head. And I'm going to cut my line. So bringing it back to me, and cut the line. Just like that. And I'm going to take my next diagonal forward parting and back to that previous. This is going to be a traveling guide at this point, but I'm going to bring it back to the previous each time. And then the real kind of forward feel to the haircut's going to happen once we get around this corner. What I don't want to do is start over directing everything right away back here, because that'll already push a lot of weight right behind. I want it to be more consistent across and then start to take its dive down. So again, another diagonal forward parting, and I'm just bringing it back to the previous, not back to the center. So I'll cut my line right here, cut my line. So just like that. So I'm starting to get that forward feel, but it's not really extreme. Back to the previous. Just like that. There we go. Take another diagonal parting. And again, bringing it back to the previous. Now, those of you guys that get a hole back behind the ear, first off, don't freak out about a hole, because sometimes a hole can happen, but honestly, we're going to cut into this hairline. So you can see how the hairline right here gets a little bit weaker. All of that in the dry cut, I'm going to take off, and I'm going to follow this line that I'm creating. So I'm really focused on the weight line in the interior, not so much the line on the exterior. So that whole talk of a hole in beauty school, to me, isn't really a thing, because if you come around and you just cut shorter layers in here, then you're cutting a round shape anyways. So you just need to know what you're doing. I'm cutting triangular, so as I get to the side here, everything is coming back to me. I'm not allowing my hand to go into that corner because it's triangular, so I don't want to create that corner here, or take off the corner, I guess you should say. So I take the hair and I bring it back, straight back, and then I finish off using the line from that previous section. So now you will see, as I comb that down, the weight, if you can see it here, that's our weight. This, you've got your line, but then it goes up and away, but that's only because the hairline goes up and away, right? So the hairline's creating that length. That's okay, because again, we're going to cut that line off. So we could continue on this side, cut this whole side if we wanted to. I personally like to work both sides to make sure I have a nice balanced shape before I move on to the rest of the cut. So I'm going to spin around here. Now we're going to change up our hand positioning a little bit. So the way that we're going to do that is I take out the clip. I'm going to spin this a little bit so you can see. I'm going to saturate it down with a little bit more H2O here. Just like that. And now I'm going to take a small diagonal forward parting that mimics the chin line, or the jawline, not the chin line. What's a chin line? Chin line. All right. So we got the head tilt forward. Now here's the hardest part, and this is where I probably don't need to practice the left side as much as I need to practice the right side. The right side becomes harder because right away my elbow needs to go in the air in order to keep my fingers pointed down to get that consistency of my combing into the new section. So this becomes the hardest part because already as I push this hair in, I want to push it over, and sometimes you can push it a little too far. Sometimes you have too much lower elevation. So that's the tricky part. You have to realize your line, you have to look at your line, which is right here, right? That's my line. So that's what I want to continue this section into. So I hold this up in my hand. I can see my line through there, and that's what I want to mimic in the haircut. Now, if their head gets in the way, I'll flip the scissor a little bit, keeping that line. Now I can cut regular, just through there. So now I know I'm staying consistent within my line. So again, diagonal forward, just like that. Bring the hair over. And this is just going to go into the previous. So you want to be careful on how much over direction you have in the haircut. Again, we're trying to carry the weight. So I like to think of a traveling guide as carrying the weight line and dropping it off somewhere else. Stationary guideline is bringing the weight here and throwing it that way. So cutting it off here and just tossing it forward. If you travel with it, you're carrying it over and then dropping it off. So you're not going to leave that weight behind. You drop it off in a later place. So you got to think about hair cutting no matter what. As soon as you cut something off, you're placing the weight somewhere else. So sure you know where you want to place that weight. So again, over to the previous, combing the hair into that section and cutting. Again, diagonal forward, following the jawline across with every parting that I make. That's the line I want to create, so I want to make sure I mimic that. Here. So now I have, instead of rounding that corner, I bring everything straight back and I cut it right here. Just like that. Then I comb it down. Again, you see this piece goes up just a little bit, but that is all stuff that we're going to. And I'm actually going to show you guys that because we'll start to blow this before I even cut the rest. I'm going to move probably 2 more inches up here. I'm going to work vertically now instead of diagonal. And then we'll blow dry this back half and clean up our perimeter first. So that's our next move. So 2 inches up. And when I say 2 inches up, I'm not really being that specific, but I'm already looking at it and I can see that it's 2 inches because I look at where the comb starts to bend on the head, right? So we're starting here. This bend right here, that's where I want to put it because that's where I know that the head shape is moving. So I want to make sure that that's where I'm staying in line with. So right there, and I comb the hair over top. And I push all this later hair away. We'll cut that later. Slide the clip underneath. We'll do the same thing on the opposite side here. Good deal. So I match it up right down to behind the ear. I comb it down. So it's really important. Sectioning, I honestly, any class I've ever taught hands-on and I watch people, the worst thing that happens is that sectioning is not clean. And when your sectioning is not clean, your haircut is not going to be consistent. So make sure you really spend the time. See if I can focus that guy in. There we go. So that is our line. Working through the back. So now I'm going to connect vertically. My hand's going to be, again, straight out from the head, not diagonal. This is how we focus. Hold the comb up. Is it on auto? Nope. Sorry, YouTube. Hang on there. Okay. And when you see the comb in focus, you know. All right. Haircutting tips and filming tips all in one. Okay. So I grab about not even half an inch to start this. The thicker your section that you grab of hair, what happens is you pinch that hair together and you're already over directing it. So anytime then you take a new section, you get a diffused guideline because you're smashing it all together. So to get the strongest guideline, you want to make sure that you're not over directing too much hair, pinching it in. So less than half an inch here to start. And I'm going to work that line. This is where it's going to turn more into that 45 degrees off of the head shape. There's 90, right? So 45 is about here. That's the angle I want to create. That'll start to build up that nice little bit of weight in there, which you can kind of see happening. I'll show you more in a little bit. So still traveling guide. So another like 1/4 of an inch parting, and I bring that over to the previous, and I cut my line, connecting that to the bottom. So I comb that down. Now what I'm going to do it's okay, is I'm going to take, so this is what I've cut so far, about 1 inch worth of hair. I'm going to take half of that and push it away so I don't get involved with it. And I'm going to bring just this new section, 1/4 of an inch of hair, into that previous. Bring it right here and cut my line. There we go. So I'm going to do the same thing. So half of that, take it away, push it off to the side so I don't mess with it, and grab another 1/4 of an inch section of hair and bring it straight back to me. Just like that. Connecting this all together. Now, here's where it changes. So now I've got a consistent weight line going across. You can kind of see it bevel over. Now, I don't want to cross over. This is where the head starts to curve this way, right? So I don't want this to change. I want it to start to dip. So instead of going any more around this corner, I just bring everything straight back, which is going to kind of square this off for a second, which when I say square, I mean it's going to create basically a straight line of weight across the back, but then it will become triangular because this part we're going to pull all back as well, which will push that forward. So the square is me cutting a straight line straight across in the back. So I bring this hair back to me, straight back from the head, not over directing it in, and just following that guideline. So now you'll see right away that it goes from going straight across, now dipping quickly, and it's right here. That's why that quick dip happens just shape curves in. So honestly, if I would have taken this hair and brought it all the way to the center, that's why it gets so extreme, is because the head shape, you're playing with that whole curve this way, not only the over direction. If her head was flat in the back and you over direct it, you'd still get that heavy weight line, right? So think about the fact that that curve is even helping more. It's creating more weight to the front. So that's that side. So let's move to the side here. We're going to do the same thing. Now what I'll do, the tilt of her head right now has nothing to do with the haircut, has everything to do with consistency of how I cut it. So I tilt her head back straight, just like that. That's me with my elbow, because if her head is here and I'm holding this here, my elbow's got to come all the way up, which is a lot more uncomfortable. So I want to make sure I tilt her head up just a bit. And what that's going to do for me is just make it easier on my arm. So I comb that hair into the guide. That's my guideline. And I go in and I cut. Just like that. Take away half of that, push it off to the side, just like the other side, and take 1/4 inch of new hair and bring it in. You've got your guideline here. Make sure it's nice and strong, you can see it through. And we cut the hair to match. Just like that. Half of the hair, comb it away, and grab the new. Just like that. Okay, now we're getting to that curve. So this is all going to come straight back. Just like that. Comb it back. And here we go. Comb it back. So now you can see that nice dip. And what I want you guys to really notice now, I'll turn the head. So you can see that dip there, nice shape that it's got going on. And then you can see when I turn it like this, and I tilt the head up, you can already see, focus it in, you can see that bob shape happening. It's a little dark, but when I turn it, you'll get the gist. So you can see how that shape there works through to her jawline. That's the whole point right there. And that all comes from our finger angle, the diagonal sections that we took before, and really setting ourselves up for, I don't want to say for success, setting ourselves up for some success on this haircut, right? So just making sure you get it right from the beginning and you don't have to worry about it. So what I'm going to do is I want to work, I think I'm going to work one more couple inch section first, and then we'll blow it dry because I really want to get the shape in there before we move on. So you can see, start to comb the hair out. It starts to fall over there. And that's like the hardest part is done at that point. So I take my next 2-inch, which is basically the division, you could say. It's not going to be like that on everybody's head because everybody's head is different. But for the most part, that next parting would be at the division. So just like that. And I will clip the front away. I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side here. section it down right at the division point. When I say division point, I just mean basically the middle of the ear divides the back and the front. Comb that forward. There we go, just like that. So same thing, guys. I know it's a little repetitive, but that's what cutting a precise bob is. It's a little repetitive. So center, we're going to go 1/4 of an inch. So I'll lift this up. We're going to go 1/4 of an inch again in the back, just like the previous panel that we cut. That 1/4 of an inch starts us off, doesn't over direct anything, keeps everything nice and consistent. Now, the only thing you want to decide here is, do you want to keep building that weight from here out, or do you want to start to round it up, right? Do you want the weight to sit a little higher or a little lower? That's all based on your elevation from this point. You've got the head curving. This is where we stopped cutting, right? So if you want it to be about 45 degrees, for me, that's going to be a little bit higher elevation than you would probably think. So I pull this out from the head here, and I comb it up and pretty much straight out, but you could see if that's 90, that's about 45, right? So it's not that you have to be that specific, but just know that the higher the elevation at this point, the lighter, whoa, cutting myself, the lighter that graduation is going to be. So I think sometimes in our mind we feel that we need to, because we cut angle, we have to keep that angle. You don't have to keep that angle. You can really change it up throughout the haircut. That's going to customize it for the person a lot better. So I'm going to bring this back to the previous. I'm going to recomb that. Just really focusing when I'm working on this as like an exercise. I'm really thinking about my finger angle, my elevation, my tension, like everything that I'm doing in this haircut, I'm thinking about it. And that just makes you a better hair cutter. So take half of that away, comb it off to the side, and then take another 1/4 of an inch. Bring that back to the previous. Keep that elevation. Like, it's very easy to just now all of a sudden drop it down. And then you see it goes a little weird because I'm not at where my guy really is. But some people will just cut that off just to move it in because that's where they think their hand should be. You got to trust what you're doing and the shape you're creating. Make sure you're doing everything the same every single time. Elevation is up, creating that line. Now here's where it's going to get a little crazy. You're going to get a little disconnection because right here, let me take half of this, push it away. So what's going to happen now is as I round the corner, everything gets a little shorter, tighter here. So when I bring this back, this is what you're going to notice. I cut my line here, normal, straight back off the head. But then right here is where, I'll show you. See where that disconnects right there? That's okay. Let it disconnect. That's going to start to build our forward shape that we're getting here. It's going to be a little disconnected, a little heavier. That's where that hole is, technically, if you want to say it's a hole, is sitting there as well. So it's going to put that extra weight into it. So I still keep everything coming straight back, cutting it, like we said, kind of in a square pattern. See the disconnection? There's a line right there. Don't follow the line. Don't make yourself follow every line. Sometimes disconnections are good. So now you can see that triangular feel that we're starting to create. Again, this is the structure of the outline that we will cut into in the dry cut as well. So you can see I'm cutting it. You can see the flow of the weight and it starts to dive down right there. So I'm going to do the same thing on here. It looks like a lot of you are on here live with me, so I appreciate that. Middle of the day. All right. 1/4 of an inch section. Now here's where it gets a little difficult because my elbow is up in the air. So I'll even tilt the guest's head back even more, just like this. So she's almost looking, you can see, she's almost looking up in the air just a slight bit. But that makes it so much easier for me and my angle that I'm trying to create, because look at this angle that is here. I want to make sure I'm cutting the right line and not dropping my elevation. So coming through here and cutting. Now at this point, I know somebody's in the chat saying this because I've taught this haircut a lot. You could switch to being on top of your fingers and pulling the hair in. That would be fine. Totally fine. I like to stay consistent with the way that I'm doing it, so I'm not going to change. Could, if you're more comfortable that way and you stay more consistent. I wouldn't suggest being down here doing it because that's awkward and ridiculous. But if you move up here, this becomes very comfortable. It's fine. Like I could take this next parting, take away some, comb it over to the side, take it here, and bring it back to me and find that guide. Here's my only problem with this, and now as I'm doing it, where I feel it's a problem, I like to look at my section. I like to be almost behind it. When you're standing off to the side, it becomes much harder to keep consistency this way when you're pulling it in and trying to look over at what you're cutting. So for me, recommendation is consistent with what you're doing. Don't try to change it up right at the end. I would take that uncomfortable a little bit over not being able to see. So here we go. Cutting. Just like that. Oh, geez. Oh, gosh. What's going on here? All right. 1/4 of an inch. Bring in that new hair. Starting to go around the corner, so I'm thinking about it. At this point, just coming straight back. You're going to start to see that disconnection happening. Okay. Now the last two will, again, just come straight back. Just like this. There's my line. Cut there. Recomb because the tension's weird up in your fingers there. And work it. Last one. Straight back from the head. Not much to cut. Bring it straight back. And there we go. Just like that. Right. Is it back? We back in action? Yes. All right, guys. Sorry about the sound. We ran out of battery, I guess. Oh, it's always something. All right. So let us know in the chat how long it's been out of sound. That would be very helpful. All right. So blow drying, working with a flat wrap technique, wrapping it around the head. Really what I want to do is just form the hair to the head shape. So then when you down, it's got that nice bevel already to it. Also helps smooth the hair nice. Two minutes? Okay. Was it before the blow dry or after the blow dry? All right. Now I'll take diagonal back parting. I'm just going to work the iron into the hair and just smooth it out, really just working with the head shape here. A little bit of product on there. Okay, good. It's our lucky day. All right, so just ironing through, working diagonal back. I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. So just working to smooth that and get it to fall with the shape of the head. That's the whole goal with this. See those disconnections? That I'm going to cut off. So again, don't even wonder about it. That's that Joico oil. It's really shining the hair up. I'm gonna say, based on my limited testing of that product, I just took it out of the box. I'm gonna say it's better on dry hair, minimally. All right. So the goal here is to look at the weight within the haircut, not to look at the shape on the outline. Like this, you can customize. Like you see people do like different shapes within the hairline. All of that has nothing to do with like the actual shape of the haircut, and you're not doing that within the wet cut. So focus on the interior. Okay. So now I'm going to take my scissor and I'm going to work the hairline. Try to get a little closer here. Even got product on her neck. Okay. Combing down. So I'm going to start by working with the tip of my scissor and that line that I want. Now what I'll do is I'll take a look at how the density is, how it falls on the head shape before I start doing that line, because this is exactly how I want it to be. So I'm going to start working that line a little bit higher and work it across just like that. So this way, if I look at it here, her jawline, I can see exactly where I want to take that in the haircut. So here we go. I'll comb the hair down and I'll work with the scissor just like this and I'll start to take and etch the hair away. Now, you don't want to go in here and just go full blown with your blade. What that's going to do is push the hair, and then you're going to end up with shorter pieces than you wanted, and you're not going to get your line. So just go in little by little, use the tip of the scissor across. This way, you're not pushing the hair, and you get the line that you're going for. Never fear, guys. Oh, battery might have died. I'm coming back. I'm still here. You can hear my voice. Here we go. We're like a pit crew with batteries. Okay. Welcome back. All right, so continue cutting the line. Just using the tip of the scissor, working my way across. And Carly, if there's any questions, if you turn on Christina's mic, you can say them to me. If you guys have questions now. Recording still, right? No, it's not. Is it working? No. Oh, the red button above Christina's name over on the board says Christina. Just hit the red shiny button. Yeah. And then turn. And then you should be good.
Hello.
Yes? No. Yeah, it's good.
It's good.
Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, you can't hear it in there? That's okay. They can hear you. Yeah. So if you guys have questions, ask away. So I'm just continuing this line.
Would you refine it the same way with curly hair?
Similar, yeah. If it was curly hair, I wouldn't be as focused. Probably, I mean, guess depending on the curly hair and the cut, I wouldn't be as focused on the perimeter line. So, but I guess with that being, it does depend on the shape. So I want to create. So I guess I would say yes. Like typically with curly hair, I will go in, do a wet cut depending on the curls, and then I'll go in and refine later, doing the outer perimeter and also some texturizing, cutting, some maybe like some tease cutting, those kind of things. So you can see that line, those kind of things to break up the curls a little bit. Okay, same thing here. So I comb the hair down. And I'm going to work across. Just like that. Sometimes I'll just work quickly and get the bulk out, and then I'll go back in and refine it. My biggest thing is really focusing right now on keeping that line balanced and following my weight line, which is above, which is here. So I want this line to match my weight line, and it just keeps the haircut looking nice and balanced, and to my eye looks the best. Working my way across. Then once you get your line kind of going and pretty much where you want it, then you can go in with a little bit flatter blade just to make the line a lot harder and sharper. But you don't want to do that initially because there's so much hair. Okay. So just working, refining that line. So you can see how sharp that line gets. Okay. And then this disconnection, I want to tie that in because I'm not trying to make it that long right away. I definitely don't want it to go much past her chin in the end result. So I'll tie that in. Just like that. All right. So now we're going to cut the sides. The sides are pretty simple because you stick to the very similar way of just bringing it straight back. Now it's really weird because I am going to wet this down just a little bit, and I will wet down just a little bit of this side as well that was already dry, just because when I overdirect this back, I want to have that consistency. But I like to make sure I have my balanced haircut before I move on, because I don't want to have to recut anything or not have it balanced in the end. So here we go. Got the hair saturated again. Not fully saturated. This isn't really wet back here, but just enough.
A question about the refining of that line. Someone asked, could you use clippers to refine?
Yes, I was actually going to say that if you wanted to, my recommendation is use your scissor, the tip of your scissor, to work across that line, but then you could go in with a trimmer and just define it a little bit. Sometimes with a clipper, you go in and you're like, ooh, I shouldn't have done that, or it's a little off balance. So get your balance line first with the tip of your scissor, and then just refine it, refine the line, make it sharper with a trimmer or a clipper. I would say a trimmer more, because clipper has such a straight blade and wide blade that it sometimes can like throw off, because sometimes you want a little bend to your line. All right, so now I've decided already that I want to switch up the line that I'm creating here. So I'm going to comb that out of the way. And instead of bringing everything up and out, now we've worked around this curve of the head. So now I'm going to create a new line using my guide from the bottom here. So I'm going to bring the hair to me. All right, I'm changing my mind again. What I want to do, there's a few different ways you can do this. If you want extra heaviness, then you could start here and just work your way across. I'm going to lighten it, and then I'm going to shift into creating that line. So I'm going to kind of follow it diagonally. I think that'll work the best in this case. It'll also really allow this hair here to lay nice and soft on the top. You guys can't see. There we go. All right, so I take that parting and I connect that here. And I've got my disconnection still. And I'm going to do the same thing with this. Bring it back, cut that here, and then eventually I will be running out of hair that will reach back there. So I'll cut that line. This is all behind the ear, right? Or right at the ear. So we get that line there. Now I'm going to take more hair. I'm going to work diagonal forward along that jawline and bring everything back to this point. So as of right now, that first section, there's not a whole lot to cut here. So I'll take another diagonal, bring it down to me. A little more to cut. That's good. I'm just going to keep working diagonally until I run out of hair on this side. Just like that. There we go. And last, bring it all over. So that gives me that forward feel right there, just like that triangular. So I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. Turn her head around. All right. So now take a little bit of this hair that's going to kind of fall into the back. And that's really my goal here, is to make sure that the hair that's going to fall backwards isn't too disconnected in there. So I'll bring that back, cut it with my line, just like that. I'm going to tilt the head back a little bit. Just like that. Connect it. Same thing here. Bring it back, connect it. It's just that little bit of hair.
Would you cut this differently if someone had a side part?
A little bit different, but not a lot. So like with the side parting, you're just going to have a much heavier side, which would be the side that obviously she parts over towards. So like there'll be a weak side, which you'll go through and probably do a similar technique to what I'm doing. And then a heavy side, which I would either go through and do a little bit of layering. So I'd over direct it back and up instead of just down and over. So typically I will do a little extra kind of weight removal on the heavy side. Or I'll just cut it, let it be heavier, and go in and do some texturizing techniques later that will take out just a little bit of weight and add a little bit of texture to it. And that's pretty much it. Nothing too crazy or complicated. There's our guide right there to connect that line. And I'll just work diagonal forward, following the jawline, over direct everything back. Just like that. Diagonal forward. Really want to work that hair from the base, make sure nothing's getting tangled up there, because if you don't comb consistently, then you end up with that guest calling saying that they have a straggler hair or something hanging down and that you missed. It's not a good situation to be in. So over direct it back, finger angle, same as the jawline. Just removing that last little bit.
Do you recommend this length for this, like this style of haircut, or could you wear it longer?
You can definitely cut longer for sure. This is a great haircut to be even shoulder length. The only thing I would change up is obviously that very beginning. I would just have it a little bit longer, but then you don't want to too much, because then it gets a little like mullety at the bottom. So I would say go in and just make sure you're really working at graduation, or cut from occipital bone down blunt, and then do everything and bring it back so that you have more of a blunt edge on it instead of a graduated or layered edge on the bottom. All right. So I do want to go through and cut into this perimeter line on each, but I'm going to blow it dry first, and then I'll do. So again, I'll just work a flat wrapping technique around the head. Just to work that hair into the shape of the head. All right, I'll just do a little bit of ironing real quick. When I iron this cut, I pretty much do it the same as I cut it. So it'll be diagonal forward like that, and I'll bring the hair back. Hold it in my hands with tension, put the iron in, and just kind of work just with the shape of the head. Slight bevel. Same thing. Forward, just like that. Bring it back. Slight bevel. Just like that. Are we still recording, Carly? So those of you guys that are watching live, I will, this video we're recording to make a YouTube video out of, so you'll definitely be able to see a faster version of it. And also, this live class and that YouTube video will be going on FSE On Demand, which is our new app, which is basically Netflix for hairdressers, and it's free. So you can go on there, you can carry the app with you wherever you are. All different techniques from all different artists. A lot of our friends we've been filming and putting on there as well. So you don't see them all on this YouTube channel, but you will see a ton of really cool stuff for free on the app. So you can download that. It's for iPhone and Android. It's called FSE On Demand. All right. So on this side, I'll do the same thing. I'm going to diagonal forward partings. And then iron it back, slight over direction back. Okay. Last couple sections. I'm just going to do a little bit of refining in the back here. Yeah. All right. And now I always do some sort of dry haircutting techniques to finalize the cut, to really make it kind of stand out and just look more put together. So I will be doing that in one second as well. The goal when you're smoothing hair to cut it dry is to make sure that there's no kinks and creases in it. So I did everything diagonal forward, pulled it back here. Now I'm kind of going like diagonal back a little bit or even vertical and just cross-checking my iron work and making sure that each little bit is nice and soft. So even that, so just diagonal back now, pull the hair out, and I can see any little inconsistencies with my smoothing, which will help have a more successful dry cut experience. So far, so balanced. Again, cross-checking, smoothing out. Diagonal back. Keep that tension with your hand. Follow. Oh, somebody's calling. I got it, Carly. I can mute it. All right. So now we've got our dry, almost done bob here, triangular bob. So what I want to do is just go in and just soften some of this heavy weight because this got back straight here. So what I'm going to do is just go in and first soften, then work the perimeter because you don't want to work a perimeter on dry hair that's super thick. Not only will it take you forever, it probably won't look that nice. So this is very bulky, very squared off looking. So I'm going to bring that line in. What I want to do is I want to take some of this hair out just like this. And I'm going to start underneath here and I'm going to work, that's my perimeter line. So I want some of that to fall out. And then I'm going to do a tease cutting technique, which is a half open, half close of the scissor, which just removes some of that bulk. Now, here's the thing. Some of you guys might be thinking, well, could I just elevate it in the wet cut so that I don't have that weight at the end? Yes, that's the answer, the quick answer. The more extended answer is if you do that, you get a more blunt, weightless haircut, which some people like, more blunt layering. This technique that I'm doing here creates more of a soft effect. So if you're looking for a little more of a textured, soft feel, then going through like this and just softening the edge because it gives more broken line instead of a harsh line, then I would go in and do this technique. Yes, you can do this on curly hair. I actually really love this technique on curly hair, so that's something to think about as well. So I'm just working diagonal back and then just kind of over directing the hair back towards me. And that, the only reason I'm over directing it back is that keeps that triangular kind of forward feel to the haircut and doesn't remove too much of that bulk. So now it's already getting much lighter on the side. So now that I've lightened it up, I can tilt her head slightly. And instead of having this squared off feel, which was the old haircut, the old perimeter, I can now cut right into that line and create a more triangular perimeter. So I'm going to go right into it, just like this, and cut my line. Using the tip of my scissor, I cut, I comb, just like that. I comb. And I work that line in. So you can start to see that triangular haircut coming to life. So now I'll tilt the head up. A little bit of tease cutting. Just add that texture in. And then you can see with the tease cutting, it makes it nice and light on the edge as well. So that hair easily kind of comes back. Now I'm going to do the same thing on this side. For a nice square blocky side here. So I take the hair and I just bring it back up away and a little bit of tease cutting to remove the weight. Still working that kind of diagonal, slight diagonal back. Just like that. Off the face. Just light up the edges. One more. Bring it back. So now we've taken out the weight around the edge, but now we still have that square line. So I want to go in and I want to cut and make it triangular. So I can see it. I mean, I can see exactly where I want to cut. And I just go in with the tip and I remove some of the bulk first. And then I can really refine it. So I'll tilt her slightly. And I can refine. Just use the tip across. Any questions in that chat room, Carly? All right. Good. Well, I'm glad we did this today. Nice spur of the moment class. Maybe we'll keep doing this kind of thing. So you can see. Guess what? I'm going to try the Joico product on dry hair. We're going to give it a shot. I'm excited to see what it's like. All right, so Blonde Life Brilliant Glow. It's very brilliant glowing hair. Tiny little bit.
was the same scissor all the way through, and also for like the point cutting, what scissor do you recommend?
All right, guys. Well, guess what? What scissor do I recommend? So, I've worked with Mizutani scissors for a very long time. Just recently, just launched my own scissor with Mizutani. So here it is. It's manufactured by Mizutani in Japan by hand. So what I love about this scissor is that every little detail I wanted in it, it went. Short tang. So I like that, it's a nice little rest for your finger, but it doesn't get in the way when you're working and flipping your scissor and palming the scissor and all of that. Also, right here, the thumb, you can see it has this little groove. That's because I like to do a lot of cutting with my thumb half in the scissor. It also has a super pointy tip, a flat screw, a matte black whoa, that's hard to say. Matte black flat screw in there as well. My logo, Mizutani logo. So really cool scissor, 5.5 inches. The reason I made this scissor is I wanted all of those things, but then also the blade design cuts really, really well on dry hair and wet hair, which is kind of my thing. So everybody's always asked me what my favorite all-around scissor is. And I would have like kind of multiple scissors that I liked using for everything. Well, now I use that scissor for everything. And I really like it, like for dry cutting, wet cutting, whatever. So if you guys are looking for a scissor, definitely go to freesalon.education.com. And it's for sale on there. We have a limited run of them. So if you want one, I would get it as soon as you can, because I don't know how long it will be available, but it's definitely available. So yeah, freesalon.education.com. Check it out. Last little thing, I just want to maybe I'll do a little bit of this Joico Beach Shake. This is a pretty cool product for texturizing finishing. So I'm going to put that in the hair. I need a little bit of in this. I like the oil, but it's makes the bob a little slick, so I want to add a little grit to it. And this actually puts a pretty good shine on the hair as well. All right. Perfectly imperfect. All right, I'm going to show you guys kind of our dig that. So I really like the angle, so you can see how it's still a pretty good stack on this haircut, but the texture that you get from the tease cutting, but the structure you get from the rest of the cut just is really cool. So you guys like this cut and can use it in the salon. Hopefully you're working today and you're making lots of money and you're doing cut. That would be awesome. Make sure you hashtag us, Free Salon Education. Love to see your rendition of this haircut on there. Also, be sure to go to fseondemand.com, sign up for an account. It's free, and you can watch these classes, a lot of other classes, and some guest artists that we've had as well. Thank you guys for tuning in with us, and we'll see you guys on the next class video. Thanks so much.